Right. So here I am today with EJ, Florence Nightingale, and Brendan. And we're talking about different types of real estate business models. And I just started to share my screen when we started the recording. And what I'm talking about today is what EJ challenged me to talk about, which is a business model that would allow her group to buy a multi-res or small commercial or mixed use, which means you mix together residential and commercial. And most people, as you know, EJ, when they're talking about buying multi-res, they go out and they find a triplex, or they go out and find a 10-plex. And there are 30 other bidders out there bidding for it. And then you pay ridiculously high prices and you get really low cap rates. And here's a skill testing question for you, Brendan. Is that a model for success?
Yes or no?
Well, there's only two answers, yes or no.
I'm going to have to say that I misheard the first statement right there.
You were doing email, I think.
Yes, it was actually, sorry.
It's okay, I just embarrassed you, I didn't mean to. So EJ, you know, if you buy something that 30 other people are competitively bidding on and you pay a very high price for it, maybe over asking, and your cap rate is really low, what does that spell?
Overpaying, essentially.
Yeah, it spells disaster, right? So you want to try and find buildings that you can buy where you're not entering into a bidding war and where you're buying with a minimum cap rate of 6% and preferably 8, 9, or 10 or 11% if you can, but not less than 6%. That's kind of the floor that I set. So what I wanted to show you was a model that I call Main Street Makeovers, which are clients of mine in the United States and Canada are pursuing with a vengeance. And this is an example in a very small town. You guys all know it. It's about 60 miles, 100 kilometers south of Ottawa. It's called Prescott, Ontario. A very overlooked little town, but it's on the St. Lawrence River. It's not far from Ottawa. It's very close to the United States. It's reasonably close to Montreal in the east and Toronto in the west. And so one of my clients, who's about your age, EJ, he's 29. He bought this building that you can see on the screen here. Can you see my cursor moving around?
Yeah.
So it had 2 commercial spaces at grade, and I think it had 3 apartments above, all right? So I think it had 3 apartments. I don't know why it was 3, but it was 3 apartments above and 2 spaces, retail spaces at grade. Both of the retail spaces were vacant, and the 3 apartments above really needed a freshening up. In addition to that, there was the potential to add a 4th unit at the rear of the property, and the zoning did allow for an addition, in other words, another unit. So he paid, believe it or not, for this building, $132,000. Okay, not very much. And to buy a building for, it doesn't matter whether it was free or whether it was $132,000, but to buy a building inexpensively is okay, but unless you have a business plan or a business model to bring it, you know, online and to produce some income, what's the point, right? So we developed a plan for this particular building, and he would freshen up the 3 apartments above. He would add a 4th unit at the back, and then for the ground floor space, what you're looking for today to fill commercial space, EJ and Florence and Brendan, is number 1, it has to be pandemic resistant. Number 2, it has to be internet resistant. And number 3, it has to be big box store resistant. Those are the 3 constraints that I place on myself and the people I work with. Those are the 3 constraints. Are you following me so far, Florence?
Yes.
Yeah. So like, I guess in this case, that because it's Prescott, like it's already big box store resistant in many ways, but.
That's true, but in a lot of these small towns where we're doing Main Street Makeovers, you know, there's a Home Depot up, you know, 9 minutes away somewhere, right, up on the highway usually. And so if somebody comes along and they say they're going to put, you know, for example, they're going to put in here like a little hardware store, that's doomed to fail. You know, you can't compete against those kinds of the Home Depot or the Lowe's of the world. And you can see that this originally had a bookstore in it. Again, very difficult to compete with Amazon. Okay, so what he did instead was on one of the bays, he rented it to a cafe, and he got permission from the city of Prescott, or the town of Prescott, to put an outdoor patio here, right here where my cursor is. So now all of a sudden you have a cafe with an outdoor patio, and what he also put in was a slider window, if you know what that is. So what that means is I call it a pedestrian drive-through, you know, where you could, you know, instead of driving your car through the Tim Hortons or the McDonald's drive-through or the A&W drive-through, you can walk along, you can place your order, you can get your coffee and your nice sandwich or whatever right there and take it home. The other thing that this particular cafe did was they did pre-prepared foods. So in terms of being internet resistant, they actually had an internet menu. You could pre-order, and you could go there and you could pick up, you know, really good quality foods that you could take home and serve your family, yourself, your friends, your kids. So that is quite internet resistant, pandemic resistant, and certainly big box store resistant. Last time I checked, you know, most of the big box stores don't produce lovely chocolate croissant. So the cafe works fine. The other bay, he rented to people I call artisans or makers, all right? Because everybody has a side hustle today. Or, you know, my side hustle is coaching, but everybody has that. And so there are 3 seamstresses in here that do like really funky clothing, and they sell it mostly on the internet. It's not, you know, kind of walk by traffic that's going to pick up like a really funky lady's hat or outfit. It's mainly just artisan space where they make really cool stuff and they ship it out of there and sell it on the internet. So he bought this thing for $132,000. I think I have the numbers on the next slide, so I won't mess it up. Yeah, he bought it for $132,000. He added an $80,000 apartment. Then he added the patio, did some other things. After about a year, he got it reappraised for $435,000. So he actually got all of his cash that he had put into this out again. And, you know, he's a very smart guy. Like, he might be 30 now, but when he did this, it was a couple of years ago, he might have been 28 or 29, and he was off to the races. So the Main Street makeover is to go into perhaps a smaller town like Prescott, find Main Street properties, you know, on the main drag, if you will, that you can buy very inexpensively. And you renovate them, you populate them with good quality tenants, you drive the value up, you refinance, you take your money out, and you do it again. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So EJ, rather than going after like a 4-plex or a triplex and paying too much for it, this is, to my way of thinking, this is a better model.
Mm-hmm. What about, I'm just kind of thinking, because one of the properties that we actually looked at well, we didn't end up going, but there was one property earlier this year that it was also priced for 130. I think it was 130 residential, but the first person, it was sold conditional when we saw it, unfortunately, but the first person who put an offer was, they couldn't find financing because it's a very old, it really needed extensive renovation, but it was considered a duplex. And when I heard about it from the listing agent, at the front, there's the 4-bedroom unit, and then at the back, there's the 2-bedroom unit. So there's a problem tenant at the time. And so the guy was really smart, essentially was at that point, pretty much renting for $500 a month or something like that. So I guess the question is, with regards to converting something like that, it's full residential. I looked at the place, it's a residential street. What about converting it, let's say, if it's possible from, because you already have the bedrooms, and if you're going to fully gut it, let's say you can actually convert it into 3 2-bedroom apartments. So is it something that, in terms of, I guess, the effort and the money that you put in, when it, I don't obviously know how much it's going to appraise at the eventually, but then would it be better to just concentrate on mixed use commercial rather than kind of like full?
No,
residential?
I don't think I'm not saying that you should do one model or another. That's kind of not my job. My job is to sort of open a bunch of doors, and then you guys, the three of you, you have to decide what suits you best, where you can best apply your skills, what you're passionate about. And so if you're passionate about it and you have the skills to do it, then it's probably a good thing. Like another little town that many of my clients have been buying in, EJ, is Smith Falls. Smith Falls was 15 years ago. Smith Falls was the place to go to score cocaine and any other kind of drug you wanted, right? If you were interested in prostitution, gambling, drugs, that's the place to go. That town was a hurting town, trust me on that. And while Perth was doing okay, and Carleton Place was doing okay, and Kempville was booming, and Ottawa was doing very well, Smith Falls was not. And about a decade ago, maybe not that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, clients of mine started doing Main Street makeovers in Smith Falls. But some of them, if I could find the location, I'll see if I could find it. Hang on a second. So just give me a second. Excuse me. So clients of mine, Warren Beatty and Greg Froese, bought this incredible building in Smith Falls, and I want to show it to you. Maybe I should just go to their pictures. Here, I got some pictures. Excellent. So, yeah, okay, perfect. So, I'll just share my screen again. So, what happened was they went in and they bought this building here. This is a beautiful old building, but you could imagine, guys, the state it was in, right? I mean, I don't think they had done a renovation in probably close to 50 years. It is zoned, I think, for 3 or 4 units, so it would be a legal triplex. I'm sure of that, maybe even a fourplex, but I know it's a legal triplex. And Greg and Warren bought this building for $245,000. Okay. And they have been renovating it ever since they bought it, which is just a few months ago now, this particular unit. And it was a legal duplex when they bought it, but they're turning it into a legal triplex because adding that third unit is tremendous. And I'll see if I've got any other pictures of it. Yeah, I've got, so this is some of the stuff, this is some of the work that they've actually done. This is just a better shot of it, I guess. And there's one in particular I wanted to show. I'm going to go back. These are pictures I took recently. This is the scene across the street. There's an old garage there with some extra parking. So when you're doing this kind of work, if you see this kind of use in the neighborhood, don't be afraid of that. Like people who are buying these buildings, doing Main Street makeovers, they recognize that people want to be in communities where they can walk. And with work from home, believe it or not, Smith Falls, its time has finally come, in my opinion. So you can live in Smith Falls very inexpensively. You can rent there or buy there, and you can work for Shopify in Ottawa if you want to. All right, so this is the backyard. It has a little shed there that they're going to turn into a mini office. And I wanted to show you one other thing, if I can get to the picture. This is just a side door. I think that's the side door that will lead to the third unit. This is the thing that I wanted to show you. It also has a detached garage. And so Florence and Brendan, I think EJ already knows this, one of the models that I really like, and it is kind of like combining commercial and residential, even though this is entirely residential, is they're going to convert this detached garage into a heated workshop. Because work from home is legal in almost every city and town across North America now. So they can rent this to somebody who maybe he or she is a mechanic, or she is a yoga teacher, or he is a registered massage therapist. So somebody could rent an apartment and and probably towards the end of this year, this garage door will be replaced by you know, a person door and a window, and they'll leave at least one garage door there in case they do rent it to a mechanic or somebody who's tinkering with stuff. So the idea of combining a residential use with backyard workshop is terrific. And EJ, it's so much quicker if you can find a condition like this where the damn thing already exists. All you have to do is renovate.
Yeah.
All right. So that's another model that I think works well. And so it doesn't have to be mixed use. It can be all residential. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's, yeah. Yeah, we're kind of looking at an hour away from Ottawa for sure.
Yeah, I think
I do have
Prescott would be in that category. You know, but you obviously have to go to cities and towns that, you know, need help. If you go to Kempville, that's been sort of, you have to fish where the fish are.
Yeah.
And Kempville has been fished out by investors.
And with yeah, I think with Prescott too, they do have an official plan that they're revising majorly this year. So I'm definitely kind of interested.
It's a good place. I mean, I know they're even across in the United States, they're like right beside an international airport too, which is
So I like Prescott. I like Smith Falls. I mean, and there's a bunch of little towns that you know, again, if you go to the high end, you know, like Niagara on the Lake, you'll pay for a little duplex, you'll pay $1.5 million, you know, you know, but it's been fished out. So you have to go into communities that have potential. And if we were having this conversation 15 years ago, I would have said no to Smith Falls, because it was just, it just was, you know, really, it was in a very difficult circumstance. There was a lot of crime there, and but once some of my more active and industrious investors went there, and also some jobs moved in. As you know, Tweed is there. I mean, the marijuana company, right? And or is it called Canopy? I never remember what it's called, but anyway, one of the weed companies in there. So employment is recovering, and certainly the real estate. They have these wonderful classic Victorian style homes that are just, they'll be there for another 100 years, I think.
Is
right?
it
So
I know this is kind of like fundamentals for real estate. It's just when, you know, when you're reading and talking to several other investors, there are some kind of like small fundamental economic identifier that you kind of have to look at. And I remember one of the quote unquote red flags that they said with Smiths Falls is that because there's only one industry there right now.
I think that is less of an issue than it might have been, because a lot of folks, and we've already talked about this, have some kind of a side hustle. And so, you know, let's say, you know, Brendan moved to Smith Falls. You know, Brendan, can you remind me who you work for again?
Yeah, Pivotry.
Right.
It's an e-commerce company.
Right. And could you work from Smith Falls if you wanted to?
If the internet's good enough, yeah.
Yeah, well, they have internet. Yeah. So I think the answer to that question is yes. And so people like Brendan will be there, you know, you know, and you know, I have clients. I think I told you that they are both tech guys working in San Francisco for big companies that are household names, and both of them independently moved to Boise, Idaho. Right? So they can make San Francisco salary. Boise, trust me, that's a big plus. I mean, you know, another client of mine bought a lot in the Mission District. This is about 4 years ago now, maybe 3 years ago. What do you think, EJ, a 50-foot by 100-foot lot right downtown San Francisco costs?
Probably definitely over $1 million as far as I remember.
Well over $1 million. It was, I think he paid $2.4 million for it. US, so real money.
Yeah.
You know, for a lot, 50 by, you know, 5,000 square foot lot, and it was zoned for a sixplex, and he built a sixplex there, but still, you know, $2.4 million US dollars. So you could imagine how much more real estate you can get for $2.4 million in Boise.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think that they have to be, though. I think you're right, EJ. They have to be within an hour, maybe at the most 2 hours of a major center. So if you're looking at a place like Tactayactic, maybe that's not going to work. Right. It's too far from anywhere. You can't really get there.
Yeah.
But
I think
within an hour of Ottawa, I think is safe, and certainly within 2 hours of Toronto, because you know, I do think this is just a guess on my part, but I think there's a few 100,000 people deciding to leave Toronto. One of my daughters works for a very large insurance company in downtown Toronto, and they made work from home permanent this year, and so she and her husband bought a home in Whitby, which is about an hour outside of Toronto.
That's actually happened to both my cousin and also my aunt.
Where are they based out of, Brendan?
My cousin Jessica, she was in York, GTA, working for one insurance company. I don't remember. I think maybe Desjardins or something. And I know my aunt Shelley. She works for. Well, the name of it eludes me, but she's already been remote already for the past 4 years. They were already planning to move out of this because they didn't want to invest in the commute time and also capital of having an office building. And
think about it from the point of view of these companies. Do you know what it costs to rent 1,000 square feet in one of those tall office buildings in downtown Toronto?
Far too much.
It's ridiculous. I think their operating costs, property taxes, and utilities are like $50 or $60 a square foot. That's just operating costs.
Yeah. It was completely enticing to those that were part of the financial sector or Bay Street in the first place. And it's just,
so 1,000 square foot office, EJ, for you and me as realtors in downtown Toronto, just 1,000 square feet. If we paid, say, $40 a square foot triple net plus $50 of operating costs and property taxes and utilities, would cost us $90,000 a year.
Yep.
I mean, that's a big chunk of your income and mine, right?
Yep. And it's also
I'd rather have my home office, to be honest with you.
That's true. And it's also happening here in Ottawa now, especially in the major centers, closer to the center town. So, And even if not, so sometimes it's just a little bit further down on Bank Street.
Yeah.
It's going up there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, the idea of getting in your car or getting on a bus and traveling an hour to go into an office building with windows that don't open, horrible fluorescent lighting. It's too hot or it's too cold. You can get sick now just by showing up for work. And then at the end of an 8 or 10 hour day, you reverse the process. You lose maybe 2. My daughter and her husband were commuting an hour and a half each way to get to downtown. That's 3 hours of your life a day, 15 hours a week times 50 weeks. I mean, think about it. It's like insane. So her productivity has really increased, I think, and her husband too.
Mm-hmm.
So I
used to do that. So
I wanted to show you a couple of other things, guys. So one of the things I've been talking to you about, I'll share my screen with you quite a bit, is if you're going to buy, say, I don't know, an old building like what Greg and Warren did, and I think I already mentioned this, but I wanted to go over it again, is that when I'm renovating today, if I can, I'm putting in microsuites instead of, say, a 2-bedroom apartment in the basement of the buildings that I own. I'll put 2 microsuites in, 2 little studio apartments instead of 1 2-bedroom apartment.
Mm-hmm.
One of my clients, her name is Lynn. She's been doing this. This is her model. Did I tell you this, EJ?
I do know of the microsuite. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, let me just tell you what Lynn did.
Study.
Lynn, I've been coaching Lynn for quite a while now. Maybe it's going back 5 years, but at least 4. And so she's been buying in Ottawa. She's been buying bungalows with good sized basements. Hopefully, I'm sure every one of them has an independent entrance to the basement. Mm-hmm. And without telling me, after we talked about microsuites, she did her next building. You walk down a common entrance, and then you turn left, you've got 1 microsuite, turn right, you've got a second. And Lynn, after she did it, then I got to tour it with her. And I said, oh, this is really cool. And here are the economics. This is going back 4 years ago. So she could rent a 2-bedroom apartment back then in the basement for, back then, about $1,300 or $1,400 a month. Be higher today, I think, but back then it was $1,300 or $1,400. But when she divided the basement up into 2 microsuites instead, where you could live independently, she was getting $1,100 per microsuite. So her rents went from $1,300 or $1,400 from that basement renovation to about $2,200. That's quite a significant jump.
Yeah.
And she found that her tenants tended to stay longer and be happier because, as you know, roommates are always arguing.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
You know, I come home and say, EJ, it's your turn to clean the toilet. No, I did it last week. It's your turn, Bruce. And then Brendan comes home. Who drank the last of the beer? And I looked innocent and said, well, not me. Of course I did. So within a few months, you know, and this has nothing to do with the pandemic. Just within a few months, every friggin' house I know with roommates, whether there's 2 or 10 of them, they're always arguing. So there's no question in a microsuite whose turn it is to clean the bathroom. It's your turn. Mm-hmm. And if there's no pizza left, you ate it, right? So, and of course, for a nurse like Florence and others, you know, you can't make anybody sick because you're on your own in these things. So what Lynn did was adding that's her thing, and that's all she does now. She buys homes not just in Ottawa but elsewhere and adds microsuites. I don't know if I ever showed you this, but this is one of my clients out in a small town east of Ottawa called Rockland. Mm-hmm. And did you ever see this one, EJ?
I think I did, yeah.
I think you did.
Yeah.
So just for Florence and Brendan, so this is a porch here, and in behind this glass wall here is a second living room. This house had a second living room. This is a picture I took in this direction. This is a picture I took in the other direction. It's about 330 square feet. And I said to the owners of the home, my friends, Ken and Natalie, I said, you put up 8 feet of drywall, you could turn this into a perfect little microsuite, which they did. So they had to add, you know, a small kitchen and a bathroom. And what was really cool, this already had its own door to the outside, which you can see here. And it also had its own little private, you know, outdoor area. For the few months of summer that we get in Rockland or Ottawa, this is a real big plus for anybody renting here. So these are terrific things, I think, to add to your house if you own a house, but also really, really helpful if you're doing any renovations, whether it's a triplex like Greg and Warren bought in Smith Falls, or you know what my client did in Prescott on King Street. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now there was one other thing I wanted to show you about microsuites, which really blew my mind if I could find it. I wanted to show you what UBC did with theirs, but I got to find it first. I did have it ready for you guys, but now I'm not sure which slide deck I've got here that opens. Did I ever show you what UBC did with their microsuites?
I don't remember.
I don't think so.
One.
Let's see if I can find it.
I was actually thinking of the wood frame building that they built for the UBC, but that's it.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's related.
No, I'll show you what it is. Yeah, I found it. So these microsuites are so small, they don't call them microsuites, they call them nano suites. Nano is very small. And I thought they were 145 square feet, but they're not. They're 140 square feet. They do a full microsuite or studio apartment in 140 square feet. I got to show you this. So when your designer tells you, oh, no, we have to have studio apartments that are at least 300 or 400 square feet, well, that's not true. And here's what UBC did. So these are pictures from their suites. They've got a full kitchen here. It's not much of a kitchen. It's bar, fridge, a little hot plate here. You can probably have your own microwave, sink, and a few uppers. And here is the room itself. The bed turns into a desk. The desk folds down, turns into a bed. They call this, I don't know what they call this, a storage area or something like that. It has a full bathroom. You know, it's actually pretty good. And here is the actual floor plan. So you enter in here, you've got a closet here, open space for storage, which is ridiculous, but that's what they call it. There's your kitchenette, there's your bathroom, there's your bed, and your bed turns into your desk, and your desk turns into your bed. 140 square feet. So I think one of the things you asked me about was if you bought a building and you were going to rent it out to students, you turn your bedrooms, if they're 140 square feet, into studio apartments.
Okay.
Nano suites. And you will get, you know, for a room today, you'll get 6 or 7, maybe even as much as $800. You understand? That's what you'll get. But if you have a studio apartment in 140 square feet, right, with its own little wet bar and its own little shower and bath, etc., you know, and pretty much what you saw there, you'll probably get between $900 and $1,100 a month. That's quite significant.
Yeah. So what about, sorry, Bruce, just one follow-up question. So what about for these suites, rather than having just, you know, a small kitchenette, there's going to be a full kitchen, let's say, and then a couple of the rooms would share it, but they do have their own washroom.
So there are a million variations of it, but I'm going to tell you what my experience is. Human beings are incredibly territorial. We are. I mean, you know, you put enough human beings in a confined area, they start fighting. You know, 2 people maybe not, but 3 certainly will. I mean, you know, human beings are incredibly parochial. You know, white people want to hang out with white people. Black people are more comfortable with black people. On and on and on it goes. We parse everybody. What's your religion? What's your color? What's your creed? What's your gender? What's your, you know, sexual orientation? I mean, that's really not relevant here. But I go back to what my dad said to me a long time ago, EJ, which is that he just wanted to be a Canadian. He didn't want to be a hyphenated Canadian. You know what I mean? Yeah. He just, you know, he really had that view that people. There are only 2 kinds of people: people you can trust and people you can't. And it didn't matter to him what the heck their color was or any of these other things. You know, he just divided the human race into 2 people. But most human beings are not like that, as you know. And certainly Canada's a little bit better than maybe some other countries that I could think of. But still, we're very parochial and very territorial. So, in terms of design, I mean, I've done this for 40 years, so for what it's worth, you know, here's what I would recommend. Do a standalone nano suite. Okay. Where you're not sharing the fridge, you're not sharing the bathroom, you're not sharing the stove or the hot plate, you're not sharing anything other than maybe you wait below. I mean, that's just the way we are. You know, in Quebec, it's a little bit different. In Montreal and in Quebec, they are much more collegial. You know, there's more. I would be more comfortable with the model you described if it was Montreal, or maybe even Gatineau, but I'm not sure about Gatineau, but certainly Montreal or Quebec City or the interior of Quebec, because they're much more about living together. You know. Whereas most other folks, English speakers in Canada and the United States, they're very territorial. So it's certainly in Ontario, I would recommend against it.
Sorry, I just started thinking about my 2 years.
What's
sorry,
that?
I was just saying, this kind of reminded me of my 2 years in residence and university. So it's
you got it. But I would take it one step further, EJ. I'll give you an example. I own a triplex here in Ottawa. And we have a beautiful backyard. It has fruit trees, it has games, it has all kinds of things. Didn't get any use. It might as well have been, you know, on the far side of the moon. And what I did, well, actually my wife did it, is we put in 3 private patios with fencing and hedging between them. They all have some fruit trees. They all have like an outdoor ping pong table or something, or cornhole or whatever game it is. They can put their own barbecue there. You know, they all have little picnic tables there. with umbrellas. So we went from having a common area that literally never got used to having three private patios with at least some privacy screening between each of them, used all the time. And so if you want to, if you and Brendan and Florence want to buy something like, you know, I've been talking about here, whatever, you do the private outdoor patio thing. You know, if it's a triplex, you got three private, I don't care how small they are. You know, if it's big enough for 2 chairs and a table and 2 glasses of wine, that's good. But if you, it doesn't matter how beautiful the common area is, I've got lots of experience at this, people won't use it. So in this particular triplex, one lady, you know, she has MS, so, and she has like a dog. What do they call those dogs that help you?
Service dogs.
Service dog, thank you. Yeah. She has a service dog. And then the older fellow who's there hates dogs and is afraid of them, right? So that automatically they were not getting along. Separate them out, everything is beautiful again. And then the other lady who's there, she's a single mom and she has a daughter, and beautiful child, and she has the trike and she has the toys and, you know, and the friends, etc. But they didn't mix. And that's very typical. So this thing about human beings being territorial applies to design. So I really strongly recommend the microsuite, the nano suite, the studio apartment, and the private outdoor patios, no matter how small. And if you go to, say, a big apartment building, which after the condo, Florida condo collapse, and also people getting sick in these buildings during the pandemic, if you ask me, would I buy a 20-story building today? Not a chance. Right? So I've always believed in, you know, like there is some vacancy in Ottawa now. I think you're aware of that, right? In the rental side?
Yeah, there's a lot. I was actually discussing this with Brendan, because not just because there's a lot that's coming in the market, there's a lot of applications as well.
Yeah, but,
so,
but the fact is that the vacancies, at least in my experience, are all in these tall buildings. If you have a triplex like the one that I own, that's, you know, all ground oriented, and you have a vacancy, no worries, you'll get 15 applicants for that. But if you have a 20-story building, that's a little bit different now.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about. I'm a little worried about. We're right now in Richmond right now, and there are 2 massive multi-floor apartment buildings being constructed right beside us.
Yeah.
And one of my thoughts was, I'm not sure how they're going to fill those.
I'm not sure either. I think, you know, developers are like everybody else. They're subject to, what do you call it, trends, you know, like, you know, we all tend to do things that we think are, you know, when you go and buy a suit or a dress, you know, you know, the first thing the salesperson will tell you is, oh, this is in. Everybody's buying this, right? Because we all are like sheep-like, right? And the development business is terrible for that. So they are overproducing retirement residences, which again, I'd rather, you know, have my teeth drilled than build a retirement residence. They're all overbuilding these high-rise apartment buildings thinking they've struck gold, but I would stay away from both of those.
I definitely hesitate. I mean, we've had this entire trend of stack and pack, I guess, for probably about the past decade, maybe 2 decades. I don't know if it's actually it takes one pandemic to kind of reverse that. So. Exactly.
But I mean, you know, 400,000 people left Manhattan. That I know for sure. They were in these high rises that said to heck with that. And they've all moved to communities within about an hour, EJ, of Manhattan. And they're in low-rise homes or apartments. They're not in towers. And after that, you guys all saw the condo collapse in Miami?
Yeah, I saw the news.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. So I wanted to show you something else that might help you. So I bought a duplex a couple of weeks ago. Let me see, share. And I'll show you what I bought. And this is very reminiscent of the story you were telling earlier, EJ. So this is in Belleville, Ontario. So it's within a couple of hours of Toronto. And I really like Belleville. I bought 3 buildings there so far. Probably buy some more. And this one here is a 5-bedroom house. You can see it here on the screen. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
So this is a 5-bedroom house on William Street in Belleville. It's in the very, very best neighborhood in Belleville. It's like Rockcliffe Park is it in Ottawa, if you know Rockcliffe Park?
Yep.
It's where all the rich dudes live.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I bought this 5-bedroom house, and it's got a 2-bedroom house in a back-to-back condition. All right. So 5 bedrooms facing the street, and then there's another house in the back, which I think you'll be able to see better here. Yeah. So this is the side view. It's a 5-bedroom home here and a 2-bedroom home here. So there are 2 homes on it. So it is kind of a duplex, but it's not one on top of the other. It's not a double one beside the other. It's back to back. Okay. I'm going to share again, but I'm going to stop for a moment so you can see my handsome face. So this is the very best neighborhood in Belleville. It's where, you know, the rich people live, and houses there, you know, are not as expensive as Toronto or Ottawa, but they range from sort of 700,000 to about 1.2 million, maybe 1.3 million. And we got this one for $485,000 in a very, very hot market. It was below asking price. Now you might say, well, how the heck did you get a home like this below asking in a super, super hot market? And this is where you come in, EJ, as the realtor. You have to have patience, right? You have to have patience and discipline in this business, because if you overpay, despite what Brendan said earlier, you're sunk. I'm teasing you, Brendan. But I really mean that. You cannot overpay, because, you know, you're all young people, but still, it will really retard your progress, okay, in terms of becoming wealthy. So you have to be patient. Sure, I could have bought a house for $1 million, no problem. But I don't do that. I'm an investor. Now, how in the world did we get something like this under ask? And here's why. I have a few realtors I work closely with. One of them is a Toronto-based realtor by the name of Viraj Tanna. And Viraj is like my secret agent, you know, like a CIA spy or something like that. And he asked around on this property why it hadn't sold. And some people say, well, the house is old, it needs renovation. Okay, well, that's par for the course. That's not why it didn't sell. But the real reason was that the owner of the home, his first name was Alan, had grown very, very fond of his tenants. He had become very close with them. The front 5-bedroom home is rented by a single mom. Her first name escapes me right now, Wendy. A very nice young woman, probably in her late 30s, and she has a bunch of kids. She has her mother living with her and her sister who's not well, and her mom's not well either, I think. So you imagine what a challenge it is to be a single mom on a salary with all these dependents, and she pays a very, very low rent. I think it's $1,200 a month. And there's another single mom in the back in the 2-bedroom house with one boy, a nice young fellow, paying, I think, $850 a month in rent, which is not very much. So everybody there were lots of offers on this house, I mean, at least a dozen, but they all wanted vacant possession. When I heard what Viraj said, I said, oh, I know what to do. He knew what to do, of course. That is, we'll put in an offer and we'll accept the tenancies. No vacant possession required. And we guarantee that they can stay for at least a year, maybe a lot longer, but for at least a year. Put the offer in with I think it was an 18-hour irrevocable, and Alan accepted it. Okay.
And how much below market was it?
So I got it $15,000 below ask.
Yeah.
and I paid $485,500. Maybe it was a little bit more than that, but it was something like that. All right. But I never do anything without a plan. You know, my grandfather and grandmother on my mother's side are from Russia, and Russians don't get out of bed without a plan. That's why they make really good chess grandmasters, right? And so I must have got that from them. So I don't get out of bed without a plan, because I found this. So in the back of this property is a detached garage built in the 1930s, all brick, that's had a fire in it. And there was a little leprechaun in it with a pot of gold. So when I saw this, by the way, I didn't even have a chance to visit the house. My wife went down with one of our contractors to do the building inspection, and I didn't have time. So I zoomed, you know, I joined the inspection via Zoom. So I didn't even have a chance to go there. But as soon as I saw this, I said, aha, there's a little leprechaun inside here. And so this afternoon, I meet with my architectural technologist. We're going to add on the left-hand side here, if you can see my cursor moving around, we're going to add another bedroom. We're going to turn this into a 2-bedroom Airbnb. Okay? Needs a lot of work, trust me on that. But you know, for about $150,000, we'll have a 2-bedroom Airbnb here. It'd be absolutely spectacular, with its own little private patio, right? Not a shared space. And I talked to Wendy and the other lady, and I said, we're going to redo the flow outside, so we have 3 independent spaces, you know, outside. So I don't just talk the talk, right, EJ? I kind of walk the walk too, all right? And what do you think a 2-bedroom Airbnb goes for in Belleville during the season?
$200 a night?
That's a good guess. That's what I would have guessed. Between $300 and $400.
In
I can't
Belleville?
believe it. Well, it's because it's right next to Prince Edward County, which is wine country.
Wine County. Yeah.
Wine County, exactly. And in addition to that, the stupid people who run that county have banned Airbnb, right? So
I was going to ask if Belleville is Airbnb
no,
friendly.
I talked to the mayor. Trust me on that. I talked to the mayor, and he said, his name's Mitch Panchuk, very nice young man. He said, absolutely not. Belleville is, you know, is trying to build its economy. We have become a little bit more successful as we go. And he said, Airbnb is a big part of our future. If we don't have enough affordable housing, we'll just friggin' build more, which is the right answer. Right? Banning Airbnb is a very, very stupid thing to do. I mean, it was like out in Vancouver, I don't know if you guys know this, council out there banned Uber and Lyft. And thousands of young people protested, and some of them said, to heck with you, we're moving out of Vancouver because we don't want to own cars. Why would you own a car in Vancouver, right? I mean, parking and driving is ridiculous. A lot of my young clients, even here in Ottawa, don't own cars. If they want to drive somewhere for the weekend, they'll rent from Enterprise. Enterprise will come pick you up, right? And when I used to be able to see people here for live coaching, a lot of my clients would come by Uber. These are young people. They don't want to own cars.
Are you still in Ottawa, Bruce, when you're
Yes,
coaching?
I am. Yes, I am. You know, for now. And I've been here since 1983, so that's quite a long time.
Well, it seems like you're already set up to move to Belleville.
Well, you know, I own buildings in all kinds of different places, Brendan. So, but I like Belleville for sure. Yeah. I like to sail, and I'm going to dock my boat in the Bay of Quinte, which is, you know, 5 minutes from this particular property. So when I visit Belleville, my wife and I, we're gonna rent our own Airbnb. You could be sure of that. Right? And, you know, I'll probably spend a month in Belleville every summer because it's really, really pretty town. It's right on the Bay of Quinte, which is probably the best sailing in Eastern Canada, or at least one of the best places to sail. And I love sailing. So anyway, so I'm counting on about $300 a night. And the season lasts 6 months. And even in the off season, I was flabbergasted at how well these Airbnbs do, even in the wintertime, obviously at a lower rate. So I think we'll get about $300. We'll probably be about 90% booked, maybe even a little bit higher than that. So basically 25 days times $300 is $7,500 a month, right? And then in the off season, it'll be about half of that. So the reason I bought this, guys, is because I had a plan. And the plan is not to, you know, I'll increase Wendy and the other ladies' rent a little bit, whatever is allowed, you know, 2% a year or something like that. But this is what's going to pay for this property.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So,
yeah.
So what I'm trying to get across to you guys is that if you really know what you're doing and you have patience and discipline and you apply yourself, even in super hot markets, you can find wonderful projects to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I'd like you guys to do is if you find something that you're interested in, I'd like you to let me know before you waive your conditions so I can at least chirp in. I mean, what's the point of having a coach if you don't include me? So almost all of my clients, EJ, they make an offer, there's a conditional period, and during the conditional period, you know, they get my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Brendan and Florence, I sent you a link. I don't know if you have had time, but I sent you a link to look at what one of my daughters did.
Yeah, I actually watched it last night.
Oh, that's great. What did you learn anything?
Yeah, actually, I was pretty happy with the breakdown of the spreadsheet, to be honest. It was very informative to kind of show the analysis tools, I guess, for understanding if something's going to be profitable. And I was kind of having a talk with AJ last night even about like, this is a really good way of evaluating like how long to hold onto a property too, if need be, just the way it was done there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary. The one thing I would say to you is that, you know, Brendan, you know who Warren Buffett is, right?
Warren Buffett, yeah.
And Florence,
I think I do.
Yeah, most people do. Florence, you know who Warren Buffett is?
Sorry?
Florence, do you know who Warren Buffett is?
Warren Buffett.
No.
Super rich billionaire. That's
Yeah, he's probably the most famous and maybe the most famous investor in the world. He runs a company called Berkshire Hathaway. And he says his favorite hold time, Brendan, is forever.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, and I'm really glad you mentioned that because here's what happened about a month ago, which wouldn't have been covered in that video that I sent you. And that is, we had Mimi's property, this thing here, this property here appraised about a month ago. We were doing a new mortgage. And we had an appraiser come in. And she bought this property, as you know from the video, for $345,000. And then she put in the basement apartment, which you've seen. It has a walkout condition, and I'll just show you the basement apartment. You've already seen it. You know, there's the living room, and there's the kitchen, and there's the one bedroom, and there's the cupboard, and there's the bathroom, and there's where the stairs used to be to go upstairs, and there's the washer and dryer, and there's the tech package, right? So we had this appraised. Oh, I got it on the next slide. And I wanted to show you this. So she bought it for $345,000, and we added an $80,000 basement apartment. So she's got about $425,000 invested here. And she asked me what I thought the appraisal was going to come back at. So this is she bought it, I think, in 2017. And I said, I don't know, maybe I'm having a hard time keeping up with Ottawa prices. So I guessed, EJ, I guessed about $600,000. You know, from 345 to 600,000. I thought that'd be great.
Yeah.
In years. It came back at 760,000.
Yeah.
So, Brendan, what do you think Mimi asked me the next thing that came out of her mouth when she saw this?
I'm not sure here. Let's see.
The next thing that she said is, holy smokes, Dad, let's sell it.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, look at that, we can put like $300,000 or $400,000 in our jeans. Now, just to give you the economics of it, you know, we needed about $150,000 of equity to make this whole thing happen, including the new apartment. And she put in $5,000 and the bank of Dad put in the rest. But she said to me with, you know, in her cute little way, she said, yeah, but Dad, it's still 50-50, right? That's a kid arithmetic, trust me on that. So you don't have any kids yet, EJ, and I suspect Florence doesn't either, or Brendan, but when you have kids, that's how they think. I said, that's fine, maybe, sure, no problem. But, you know, I had to go on title here to help her with her mortgage, et cetera, which was fine. And so I do have a veto power, right? So I said, Mimi, if it's gone from $345,000 when you bought it to $760,000 today, 4 years later, what will it be worth when you're my age? Now, when you're a young woman in your 20s, you can never really imagine yourself being 69, you know? No. That's almost impossible. I'll never be 69, except one day she will be. Now, what do you think the damn thing will be worth then?
Definitely over $1 million.
Well, if it's gone from 345 to 760 in 4 years, you know, in 45 years, what will it be worth?
I don't like the forecast for in 20 years. That's too far for me.
It's too far for me too. But I mean, who knows? It could be worth $3 million. I have no idea.
I don't know. I'm just saying that a lot of stuff could happen in 25 years. That's why I don't like to do that. But
no, you guys are on the right track. I'm with you on that. But the reason I'm pointing that out is I had this exact discussion with Miriam like 2 weeks ago. And she said, oh, but Dad. And I said, Mimi, let's say we get, you know, we net out, I don't know, we'll probably net out $400,000 if we sold it. And if we go 50-50, she gets $200,000 of cash, right? Mm-hmm. I said, Mimi, if I check back in 2 years, what do you think will happen to that $200,000? She said, well, I don't know. I said, well, it won't be there. She said, what do you mean it won't be there, Dad? I said, you and your husband, they have a new baby. You and your husband will spend it. Oh, no, Dad, I'll never do that. Yes, maybe you will. You want that Tesla. I know you want a Tesla, right? She likes cars. You want the Tesla. And you're going to go, oh, I got $200,000. I'm going to go get an $85,000 Tesla, right? And then, oh, I got to have the trip to Cuba. Holy smokes. I mean, can't really stint myself for that. I said, I guarantee you it won't be there. And neither will the house. So I said, I'll tell you what we'll do instead. We'll put a home equity line of credit on this thing. You know what a HELOC is, right, everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we're not replacing the mortgage. We'll just add a home equity line of credit. And I said, Mimi, how much money do you want right now? Oh, she said, $10,000? Done. She said, Dad, are you bribing me? I said, absolutely yes. I'm bribing you not to sell this thing because, you know, one day I won't be here. I want you to hold on to it till you're an old lady, and then I want you to give it to one of your kids. She only has one child now, but maybe she'll have some more. Mm-hmm. So the whole period, Brandon, is forever.
Okay. With
one exception. You want to hear the exception?
Sure.
Okay. The exception is this. I just sold a townhouse that I own. I almost never sell anything, but I sold a townhouse I own. And the reason for that is it's a condo townhouse, beautiful, beautiful townhouse. I have fabulous tenants. They pay a lot of money, but I don't really like condos. And the reason for that is you can't animate condos very easily because condo corporations have more rules than a porcupine has quills. Okay? Yeah. They have rules coming out of the years. For example, we have a nice little backyard for this townhouse, and I wanted to put like a hot tub there. Oh, no, you can't do that. That's against the rules. Oh, the townhouse has a door to the outside here and a door to the outside here. It could be easily divided into 2 units. Oh, no, you can't do that. I said, but accessory dwelling units are legal everywhere in Ottawa. Yeah, but not here because we have rules against that. And they, you know, every time you turn around, there are rules. In addition to that, if you guys know anything about condos, they levy special assessments from time to time.
Yep.
Now, this is a condo townhouse, but it's associated with a tower over here. That tower has serious maintenance problems. They have balconies that are going to fall off. They have an underground parking garage that has been eaten by salt. So the last special assessment was about $7,500, and the one before that was about $5,500, and the one before that, you know, et cetera. And I could see in the future huge, huge increases in condo fees. What do you think the condo fees on that townhouse were? $1,312 a month in condo fees. That's not your mortgage. That's not your property taxes. That's your condo fees.
Like double ours. It's just...
So the cap rate on that particular asset had fallen, Brendan, to 3.5%. Cap rate to Florence is just your return on investment, 3.5%, which in real estate, 3.5% is below my 6% minimum. So I had tenants in that condo townhouse, very nice couple from Mexico. They've been there for a number of years and they love it there and they wanted to buy it. And I said to them last year, look, it's not for sale. I just don't sell real estate. And they made me an offer. Then they made me another offer. Then they made me another offer. And finally, they raised their price to, like, I think it was $750,000. And, you know, I bought that thing for $241,250. So I bought it for $241,000. And they kept raising their offer. I told them, look, I'm not going to sell it. But when it got to $750,000, I said to my wife, I am going to sell it. And so what I did was I sold that townhouse and I bought William Street. William Street will have a cap rate of probably close to 9%. So there are times, guys, when you do sell assets, when you get a ridiculously high offer. In my opinion, it was ridiculous, but they wanted it, so okay. And you could go from a 3.5% return on investment to maybe 8 or 9%. That's worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
That's pretty common sense. I like that.
It's very, very simple. Listen, the stuff I teach is it's not like putting a man or woman on Mars. That's hard.
No.
But what is good, what you're going to find really challenging, guys, is to have the discipline to make the stuff that I'm teaching you work. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get antsy, you're going to get impatient, and you're going to make a mistake. And that you have to, look, I'm a lot older than you guys. You're going to have to resist that. But again, if my dad were here, he was a very smart person. If my dad were here, he would say to you, it's like EJ and Florence, when you're looking for the right guy, my dad would say, let 99 of them go by, you know. But when you find the right one, grab them. And he used that same analogy in real estate. You know, 99 deals go by, but when you find one like William Street, the one I just went through, you grab that opportunity. And when I see something I want, I mean, I go after it, right? I mean, I'm very, very, very serious about this. This is not a hobby business.
This is going to be a little bit off topic, and I know that this is something that obviously we're going to figure out, but I'm curious, Bruce, when you are putting an offer in any of these houses, do you put your own money 20% down, or several other investors, let's say, that I've met with or talked to have been like, no, just use other people's money exclusively, kind of thing? So this is something that I guess one of our barriers between the three of us, we do have access to capital. It's just a matter of like, do we use them, or do we kind of take advantage of, let's say, the loan to value with higher interest rate from private lenders, that kind of stuff.
So that's not off topic at all. That's spot on. And that's a really, really great question. But I was just going to close out the 140 William Street discussion. Just I got it reappraised a month after I bought it. The appraisal, you remember, I bought it for $485. The appraisal came back at $995.
What?
Wow.
Is that with the double garage or the
as is?
Not yet.
As is.
Oh wow.
I mean, I did not expect it. So some of this, EJ, some of this is just luck, eh? You know, that was luck. I can't claim any. I mean, I have a plan, and I did say to my wife that after we finish with the Airbnb, the coach house in the back, and I said it'll be worth $800,000 or $900,000. I think now it'll probably be comparable to some of the better homes in the area at 1.2 or 1.3 when we finish the coach house. But I just hired a, you know, I do appraisals on my properties every 2 or 3 years, just not because I have to, I just do because, you know, I want to know where I'm at. Not to sell them, just to look at, and what I try and do is I try and optimize my portfolio. And you can't optimize something that you can't measure, right, Brendan?
Yep.
As an e-commerce guy, you're optimizing sites all the time. You know, if there's too much friction, you know, people are not going to buy. Okay, so to go back to your question of finance, EJ, you know, the best number of partners to have is 0. It is. It just is. You know, so most of my portfolio, not all of it, but most of my portfolio is in my own personal name and my wife's name, and my kids' names too. I got 5 kids, Florence, and a bunch of grandchildren. So, but they're too young. If I live long enough, I'll be schooling them in real estate too. But we'll see. The oldest one is 10, so it's a ways away. So the optimal number of partners to have, I mean, you can have a partner with your sister or your future husband. That's quite understandable. But the optimal number of partners to have is 0. So on most of my portfolio, when I want to make a decision, I just go and meet with myself in a cupboard, come out with a decision 5 minutes later. Right. So one of the things that's really important in business, not just the real estate business, any business, is speed of decision making.
Yep.
And so having partners slows everything down. The number of people who come to me and say, hey, listen, my name's Bill, and this is my best friend, John. We're going to be 50-50 partners. This just happened. A couple of Toronto investors that I coach, they're best friends. I'll just call them Bill and John, not their real names. And they wanted to be a 50-50 partner, and they're doing Main Street makeovers, by the way. They just bought a building, actually in Belleville, on the main street, quite a big one. They're wealthy guys, so they can just write the check, EJ. But what they wanted to be 50-50, and I strongly discouraged that. I said 50-50 is a recipe for stalemate. Oh no, we're best friends. We'll never argue. You know. So I said, okay, you know, I'm just a coach here. You're the decision makers. So what we did was they bought this property together in Belleville. It's a nice mixed commercial building, actually right across the street from one I own. And what I did was I said, you guys go away. Don't involve me. And you decide which of the 2 partners is going to have the final say. And they said, what do you mean the final say? So, well, you're going to have an agreement between the 2 of you, because it's a corporation that bought this building. And one of you is going to end up with a voting trust, where you have the final say over everything for the first 5 years, because that's when you usually get into arguments, right? So they said, well, that's interesting. So they went away, and then they came back and they said, okay, we've decided John is going to be the project lead, and he will have the voting trust. So there's no question for the first 5 years who makes the decisions. And after that, I said, presumably you'll have done all the renovations, you'll have rented it, you'll have reappraised it, et cetera, and refinanced it. And then you're both equal shareholders, and you both have an equal say in it. But then I said to them, there's one more thing that you should do. So I'm not trying to discourage you from having partners or investors, EJ. What I'm saying to you is that if you came back to me and said, look, Brendan and Florence and I are going to put $100,000 in, and we have some investors over here who are going to put $300,000 in. Okay, so you guys think about that. 100,000 coming from the 3 of you guys, and 300,000 from some investors. Total of 400 grand. So in theory, they would own 3/4 of this new project, and you 3 guys would own 1/4, right? Everybody following that?
Yeah.
That's a terrible idea. So as your coach, what I would say to you is, what you're going to put $100,000 in, and your investors are going to put $50,000 in. So now you have a total of $150,000. They own 1/3, and you guys own 2/3. Okay? And you guys have all the control. So we'll put it right in a shareholders agreement. They're passive investors. They're not partners. Partners want to say in the business, they're investors. Their only interest is, can you make money for us? Okay? That's it.
Yeah.
And if you do a good job, which I suspect all three of you will do a very good job, you'll have happy investors. Now, you said, but wait a second, Bruce, we still need the other $250,000 from those guys. Yes, that they're going to lend the project. Do you understand?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the Mad River structure that I talked about.
Yeah.
Okay?
I keep calling it the running river. I don't know why.
Well, Running River or Mad River, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. So you will end up with 2/3 of the project, and they will end up with 1/3 ownership, no say whatsoever in the project, other than they get, money if you make money, and they get their money back over time, right? So you hope that the project goes up in value, you can refinance, and it's the project that pays that $250,000 back, not you three guys.
Yeah.
Okay? It's called the Mad River structure. Now,
And what about, go ahead.
there's one more riff to it. It's called the non-partnership partnership model. So this is what I talked to Bill and John about. I said, okay, Bill and John, you're 50-50 partners in this. And John has the voting trust, so he makes all the decisions for the first 5 years. And at the end of that, you guys, I said, what I want you to do is I want you to find another building to buy. Oh, we want to do that. And I said, I want it to be 50-50 too. Great. And 5 years from now, I want you guys to sit down at a table. You now own 2 buildings, 50-50 each. I want you to trade the 50%, John, that you own in this building to Bill. And Bill, I want you to trade the 50% that you own in this building to John. So now John owns 100% of this one. And then guess what? You're not going to argue. It's just like the roommates, right? Only the arguments between partners, what ends up happening is one of them says, I'm running off to Costa Rica to smoke cigars, drink rum and chase women. And the other guy said, well, wait a second, I'm doing all the work here, to hell with you. That's not fair to me. I got to do all the work and you're sitting there in Costa Rica, drinking rum and chasing whatever. So partners do absolutely end up arguing. I don't care how close you are. But if you each own 100% of one building, which you guys can certainly do, then if Bill wants to run off to Costa Rica, he can sell this building, refinance it, do whatever he wants to it, ruin it. But you, John, control your own destiny. That's the non-partnership partnership. So in your model that I was just talking about, where you have, and you're young enough to do it, where you have 2/3 ownership here that you guys own and 1/3 with your investors, is what you can do is say to the investors is that we'll find 2 more buildings to do. And so, you can own 100% of one and you guys can own 100% of 2. That's the non-partnership partnership model. Do you understand that? And that's where you should go. So if you do take outside money, you think about the exit up front. And you end up owning 100% of your own buildings, and they are super happy. And what's really cool about this, and I've got lots of people doing this, and this is not new. I've been doing this now for at least 20 years, probably no, longer than that, 30 years. And so what's really cool about it is the investors, when they go out on their own, so you own now 2 buildings over here and they own 100% over here, they'll say to you, EJ, Florence, Brendan, can you property manage this for us? Because they don't want to manage it. And you say, sure, because you'll have a property management team and you'll just add another building there, but for somebody now who is independent of you.
And I guess the follow-up question that I was going to ask earlier is that with regards to, because let's say for the 3 of us, I asked about the private lending, for example,
Right,
model
that's a good
earlier.
question.
So one of the things that I know that have been pretty much used a lot by investors is essentially do the private lending at a really high rate, let's say with a refinancing exit. Is that just to kind of get away from the whole, you own 1/3 and then we own the 2/3? Is that something that kind of would have made it smoother, I guess? Because after, we bought, let's say, a $500,000 bungalow, we did all of the renovations, and now it's worth $800,000, and then refinance it. Because at least at that point, I guess it is, done. It's a done deal. It's now us and with the bank. But then we can only do that for a certain number of time, I guess, because we're all gonna.
Don't worry about the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth deal, 10th deal until you worry about the first one.
Yes.
So don't worry about number two. You know, it's like the longest journey is the one you never start.
Yep.
Okay, you know who said that?
Is it, I can't remember right now, but I do.
That's a trick question.
The author.
It was me.
I was gonna say, like,
no, but I thought there was that author, Charles Dickens.
I'm sure other people have said it, but you know, I'm about 500 years old, so I'll claim it. You know, anyway. So a couple of things about this. I do use private money because it's fast, right? And you know, so to most real estate entrepreneurs, in fact, most entrepreneurs in any field, the availability of money is often more important than the price. Okay, so I don't mind. I'll go out. I have, you know, private lenders who will lend me money at, you know, 6, 8, 10%. If I need to go out and buy something, you know, because here's what happens, and you already know this, all three of you I'm sure know this. If you go to the Royal Bank of Canada, the Toronto Dominion, the CIBC, the Bank of Nova Scotia, or National Bank, the big five in Canada, they'll say to you, oh, absolutely, come on down. We need you to do a business plan. You know, we need to see your business plan. So you're going to have to write 30 or 40 or 50 pages. And then they're going to put you through anywhere from 3 to 6 months of due diligence. I'm not kidding. They will ask you questions that you just won't believe. You know, in the case of a nuclear war, how are you planning to pay your mortgage back? Well, if there's a nuclear war, Madam Banker, Mr. Banker, I don't really have a plan. Oh, you don't have a plan to pay us back when there's a nuclear bomb that exploded in Ottawa? Oh, that's a problem. So, I mean, I'm a little cynical, but I swear to God, the 5 major banks will put you through 3 to 6 months of hell and then turn you down. That's what they will do. So if you're paying 6% on the mortgage or 5% or 4% instead of 2% or 3%, who cares? As long as it's a bridge to get to the end. So for example, you're probably aware that you could do 100% loan to value financing if you access RRSP mortgages. Are you aware of that?
I have yet to talk to Denise and Stuart, but I
well,
have
you
heard
definitely
that.
get an F on your assignment.
I was going to, but I wanted to actually, there was another thing that they hosted. I wanted to finish that first. And I'm like, I actually am drafting the email today.
You know, you got to get used to me a little bit, EJ. You know, life is short. You might as well have some fun while you're here.
That's true.
So, you know, I enjoy young people. You know, I still think I'm in my 20s because a lot of people I coach are in their 20s and 30s. So, you know, when I build my portfolio, you know, I access RRSP loans, and they're anywhere from 6% to 12%, but it's a bridge to get somewhere. So I'll do lots of 100% loan to value deals. I will, even at this age and stage of my life, because I want to own it on my own as opposed to with partners or investors. Now, that's not true in every case. I have partners and investors too, but most of my portfolio is in my own name and my wife's name and my kid's name, as I said earlier. And so if I were, like on William Street, if I wanted to, I could, you know, borrow, you know, I put, I think, a 65% loan to value mortgage on William Street, you know, because it wasn't really, for me, it wasn't that expensive, right? And I put up the other 35% in equity. And then I got it reappraised for $995, which I didn't expect. So if I wanted to, I could borrow, I guess, another $500,000 or $600,000 in RRSP money on the damn thing. You know, at anywhere, it'd be a second mortgage at anywhere from, I guess, 8 or 10% maybe. But I would only do that if I have a plan to go out and buy something else that has a cap rate of 8, 9, 10, or 11%. And then I would put a mortgage on that and on William Street at, 3.5% to pay it out. So what I don't want you to do, EJ, and with your team here, is to borrow money at 6, 8, 10, or 12% for longer than a year, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as long as you have a plan, and as your coach, I mean, I'm not your boss, but as long as I'm coaching you, if you run the plan past me and you say, look, Bruce, here's what our plan is. This is how we're going to animate the property. This is how we're going to drive the value up in the next year to 2. Then we're going to refinance it at 3 to 3.5% and pay off all this expensive financing. That's okay. All right. And you can own it 100% without partners or investors. But if you say, well, I have no idea how I'm going to repay my RSP loan that's costing me 10%, that is not a good plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So I guess this is a good segue, if you don't mind, to the cabin in the woods, because that's one of the things that I was talking to someone, and they brought up a good point. So firstly, especially if you're looking for a raw land, I think Scotiabank is the only one that even considers it.
Even considers what?
Lending you money for the raw land.
Yeah. So the best place to get financing for raw land is one of 2 places: from the seller or from a private lender. I would not. I mean it, EJ. Mm-hmm. Canadian banks only lend money to people who don't need it.
Yeah.
I have a very good credit score. I have lots of experience. I have a fair-sized portfolio, and I've been with the Bank of Nova Scotia for decades. I couldn't get 15 cents out of those guys. I mean, they give me a credit card, but that's about it. This is just my opinion, and I'm very cynical about it. There's only one bank in the entire world that lends money to people who needs it. It's called the Grameen Bank out of Bangladesh. It was started by Nobel Peace Prize winner, Dr. Mohammed Yunus. And he started a bank that said, we're going to give microloans to people who need money. And everybody said, well, that bank isn't going to work. They'll never repay it. But it's been a very successful bank, and he won a Nobel Peace Prize. Imagine that. That's a freaking big deal. But it's the only bank in the world that I know of that lends money to people who need it. And you guys need money. And I'm still growing my portfolio, so do I. And the Scotiabank, with an 880 credit score, wouldn't lend me 15 cents. Oh, you have too many involvements. How many buildings do you own? How many mortgages do you own? Oh, we can't help you. But you should do a 50-page business plan anyway. And spend weeks on it. No, I don't think I'll do that. Goodbye. I'm sorry, I'm very cynical. But listen, don't let my cynicism affect you. If you want to go to the Bank of Nova Scotia, 3 to 6 months of your life working with them, go ahead. But so what I do when I buy a property is I ask the sellers for a 50% seller take-back mortgage. Okay? And sometimes I ask for even more. Because you can get I've got a client of mine, he's got a lot up for sale, nice lot for $400,000, and we'll probably sell it, and we'll probably give the folks who buy it, a 50% seller take-back mortgage, maybe even 75%, but certainly 50%, and he or she, whoever buys it, will probably get a rate of about somewhere between 3 and 4%, which is pretty good for land. So if I was buying a piece of land, as you know, I don't want you to buy a $400,000 piece of land. I'd rather you bought something that's $40,000 or $50,000. A piece of land that nobody else wants, maybe up to $80,000, but not beyond that. And I helped one of my clients. He's a young fella, doesn't have very much money, nice man. He bought a cabin on an island, believe it or not, for $200,000. And the lady who owned it, she was getting too old to maintain it. She gave him, I think he only had to put 15% down of his own money. So he had to come up with 30 grand plus closing costs. And she gave him the seller take back mortgage for the rest. And his plan, this is the guy who does lodges. Do you know what lodges are? Yeah, the floating lodges, that's Corey. and his plan is he's got a bunch of flodges off the coast, right? And he's going to make a boatload of money with it, I think. All right, because those over the water bungalows that I do some work in Belize, if you know where that is. It's a small country. It's the only country in Central America where English is the official language, and they have beautiful, beautiful offshore islands. And so I've been doing real estate there for quite a few years. It's very beautiful. But those over the water bungalows rent for $1,000 a night, mainly to newlyweds, Brenda. So we're not going to get $1,000 a night for one of Corey's lodges, but I said, Corey, you'll get $400 a night during the season for those things for sure. Living on the water, beautiful little, it's cabin in the woods on the water.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for him. Sorry, go ahead, EJ.
Yeah, no, I was at the presentation, and I was just going to do a follow-up because I know that it was a presentation and kind of like a call for investors kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm been trying to drum up some co-investors to help them out, $20,000 each. So it's not a large amount of money. He's a very pecunious guy. I mean, he's careful with his money, so I like him, and I think lodges will be a big business. I really do. Think about how many people. If you owned a cottage and you wanted to do Airbnb, but not in your actual cottage, you can get a lodge. Corey trailers it in, you anchor it off your coastline, so to speak, and you get $300 or $400 a night.
That's true.
That's pretty cool. It's a great model, and how many resorts could use these things too? I mean, in Canada and the United States. So Corey needs a business partner, EJ. He does, because he's a welder. I mean, I'm not saying you should do it, but somebody has to do it, because he's a welder, and he's creative as hell, and he's a maker, and he builds stuff and really nice stuff, but he's not a businessman. So I got to find somebody. I got to pair him up with somebody. You don't want a partner that's just a money person for somebody like Corey. You need somebody with real business skills. Mm-hmm. And so he needs that, but I haven't found that yet.
So with regards to buying, because we've seen properties, we're constantly looking.
I apologize for interrupting you. So there were two sources, I think, of money for land. One is the seller take back or the vendor take back mortgage. The other is my friend Sean McCormick.
Sean McCormick?
Yeah, Sean has done up to 65% loan to value through private funds. I helped Sean's a mortgage broker. He's probably the most knowledgeable mortgage broker I know in Canada, or one of the two anyway, top mortgage brokers in Canada. And I don't know if I've ever introduced you to him.
No, not yet, but I would love to.
So if you're doing any kind of finance, and listen, if you have your own mortgage broker, fine. I don't get any fees or anything out of these referrals. I don't want any, because it could be a potential conflict of interest. So if I give you any referrals, I'm not getting any fees for them, just so you know, okay?
Yeah.
Because I don't want any conflict of interest. It's another reason, EJ, why as a realtor, I don't like being in multiple representation.
Yep.
I'm very rarely in multiple rep, because I hate that. Just because where do your loyalties really lie? Buyer or seller? You're not really sure. So I don't do that, and I think we should not allow that in Ontario. And I have to tell you that there's probably about 70,000 agents in Ontario who hate my guts, because I said that at an AREA conference. I said we should ban that. We should not allow. I mean, if Brendan, if you're ever accused of a crime, right, would you want the Crown attorney or the district attorney to represent you, as well as the Crown or the state?
Probably not.
Absolutely not. You're going to go to the penitentiary forever. So you want your own lawyer, and I think you should have your own realtor too. But that's just my opinion. But hardly anybody agrees with me, EJ. So anyway, Sean McCormick can certainly do 50% loan to value, maybe up to 65% with a private lender. It probably cost you 8%. But as long as you have a path to, put your cabin in the woods, cabin on the damn thing, and refinancing within a year or two, it doesn't matter. And what you're looking for, because you asked me to think about it, so I did. I think I've already mentioned, you're looking for a site, a rural site in Ontario that's not less than 2 acres.
Yes.
All right, because if it's less than 2 acres, you will be restricted in terms of having 2 cabin in the woods. You want to, like I'm building a 3-room bunkie and a 1-room cabin as well on the same property, right? But you know that property that I'm building it on is 12 acres. Okay.
So that's actually a good point, Bruce, because right now there are, and I guess just because you're more experienced, obviously you've researched a lot of this more. So right now there are available that's basically, recreational only, those kind of properties. And they're, let's say, just outside of Kemptville, for example, there's one that's around 30 plus acres for 40 something thousand.
And what is it zoned as?
Pardon me?
What's the zoning on it?
I forgot, actually. I think it's just, it's rural recreational. I think that's pretty much it.
So let's go slow, okay? So on a rural property, in most counties and towns and townships and cities, that's 2 acres or more, you can build a principal residence and an ADU, a coach house, right? So for cabin in the woods, if you have a rural property, you can build, like what I'm doing is the house is my 3-room bunkie on helical piles, right? And then I have a cabin on helical piles. That's my secondary unit because that's what I'm doing. And so that's what you're looking for. And that's RU, rural land. What you have to really be careful of is that the RU lands do not have any, they're not in the floodplain. A lot of rural lands are in the floodplain. Okay? If your property that you buy has, is covered by floodplain, you cannot build anything. You can't put a dock in there. You can't put a deck in. You can't put anything in the floodplain anymore because, when I was your age, you could always sort of work around it. I'm just building a cabin on the floodplain, no problem. If it washes away, so be it. But today they're much more strict about it. So what you have to be careful of, and so you do have to do a lot of due diligence, okay?
Yeah.
So you're buying this property that's 30 acres, and I'm just, for the moment, I'm saying it's RU zoning. That's good. You'll be able to get a couple of cabins, I think, on it. Assuming that it's largely outside of the floodplain. Having said that, as you know, I really like when part of my property, a small part perhaps, but a part of my property is a low-lying part that has some wetlands, because that indicates that you can create your own waterfront, right? And I think I've shown you some of the ponds that I've dug, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So and I love digging ponds. I've done many of them, dozens of them now. So if you have, Florence, what I'm saying is if you buy a piece of land that has almost no floodplain, but it does go down a little bit and it has some wetlands, and maybe the wetlands is a floodplain, but that doesn't matter. Right here next to the wetlands, you can dig down and it'll probably fill up with water, especially if the soil is largely sand. When you went to the beach as a little girl, you dig down and there's water, right? So that, if you can find something that's very sandy or sandy loamy, that's fine. Clay is not perfect for this, but certainly sandy or sandy loam soil. And the way you test for that, guys, is when I buy a piece of property like the one I did fairly recently for this bunkie and cabin thing, I go during the due diligence period, I put in there that I can test for soil conditions. Okay, so you put a soil conditions in there, but it's really not a soil condition that you're looking for. Because to build a helical piles and a cabin or a bunkie, you can pretty much do that anywhere. But it's a soil condition. But what you're really doing is you're going on the site with a backhoe. It costs $350, and you dig down with an extended boom. You dig down 10 or 12 feet, and you surround it with safety fencing, and then you watch over the next 2 or 3 days to see if it fills up with water and if it's stable. If it does, it's time for a party, right? Because you can dig a half-acre pond there legally. You can dig a half-acre pond. And if you have your bunkie in your cabin or whatever you build next to a pond, the value goes up hugely, even if the pond just has fish in it and a rowboat, okay? And most of my ponds, because I put largemouth bass in them, are clean. They don't have bloodsuckers in them, and the largemouth eat all the mosquitoes. You can go swim in them too.
Nice.
Okay? So doing this, it requires a little bit of science and a little bit of botany and a little bit of this and that and some luck too. So you test that during the conditional period, and you may be able to do a nice pond. So at that point, you've got a rural property. Most of it is in the outside of the floodplain, outside of the wetlands. Maybe you can add a pond to it. And then you check, you go and talk to the local planner. These days it's on Zoom. And you ask him or her if you can build a cabin on it. They will require a permanent foundation. Mm-hmm. So you can't roll a tiny house onto most of these properties. You guys all know what a tiny house is, right? Mm-hmm. These are little tiny homes on wheels. And the reason for that is almost everywhere in North America, they don't allow tiny homes because they can't be taxed for property taxes because they're mm-hmm. on wheels. So you have to have a permanent foundation. And what I have found in the places where I've been doing this is there's an optimal size somewhere between 450 square feet and 550 square feet. So quite a bit bigger than a tiny home, but you can get 3 rooms in it. Did you see my latest plan? Did I share my latest plan with you?
Yeah, I think you sent an email for that.
Yeah, did you see the actual 3D rendering?
Yes. Yeah.
It was beautiful.
The animated one.
I think I did. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's the optimal size, because if you get above, I think, 590 square feet, there's all kinds of additional work you have to do on the building permit side. If you get below 450, you're considered too small, right? They won't allow it. So it's a great size to build. And then we have a cabin that's about 200 square feet. So we have it's really a home with a cabin that is an outbuilding. Okay. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I would add probably is a workshop. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it might be part of your model in the future. The other thing is, now, if you go in the different direction in terms of zoning, is commercial tourism. Right? So you said it was recreational, but that might mean it's environmental protection, EP3. All right? Mm-hmm. So recreational might be their way of saying this is EP3. Mm-hmm. Now, EP3, you are allowed to build a home on EP3 as long as it's outside of the wetlands and outside of the floodplain. So I'm not saying that you can't look at that property. It just requires more work.
Yeah, so this is actually one of those so another thing that we saw was, for example, it's close to unopened road allowance for that small town. And Brendan and I were talking about, like, so what does that mean in terms of, talking to the city and I guess helping us out, kind of like, can this be opened or something, or yeah.
Right, that's a very good point. So to open an unopened road allowance requires an order by the city council or the county mm-hmm. council, or whatever. So it does require there is a municipal process that they have to go through. So what you would probably do is you would tie up a piece of property, and you would want to do what's called a pre-consultation with the county or the city or the municipality. Okay, it's called a pre-consultation. And it usually costs about $500, but that is really well worth doing, because so it's not just dropping in and talking to a local planner. It's a formal process. It's pretty much everywhere in Canada, the United States now you can do this. And then it's on the responsibility of the township or the county or the city to bring everybody into the meeting that you need there. The transportation people, the conservation authority, everybody, the planners, everybody. And then you just put all your cards on the table and say, look, what we'd like to do with this property, it's 30 acres. We'd like to open the unopened road allowance. We'd like to put a cabin on there. We'd like to put a bunkie on there. And, we'd, probably put it on Airbnb, but, you know, there you go. Is that something that we can do? And if we can, how do we go about doing it? The other thing that you would do during your due diligence period, as I said, is you would do the soil condition examination as well.
Yeah.
The other aspect of it is you may need a private planner to work with you. I work with a number of them that are really good. Paul Robinson and Tracy Zander are two names that, I'd like you to write down a few names. Sean McCormick for mortgages, and Paul Robinson, who's actually helping me with my latest bunkie, and is familiar with all these issues, Paul Robinson, and Tracy Zander as well. But they're not together, they're separate organizations. But Paul, I would probably recommend Paul because he's just gone through it with me.
Yeah.
And he doesn't charge very much. The only arguments I have with Paul is he doesn't charge me enough. That's true. I mean, he's very, very fair. You know, he's younger than me too, so that helps. So did I answer all the questions? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask really with regards to quote unquote recreational, and because we are thinking like, you know, of cabin in the woods, eco home, kind of like the Hammond.
Well, you wanted to do that forever.
Yeah, so I guess it's a question of whether, you know, if it's recreational, it's an eco cabin. So technically, it's still kind of recreational. So
yeah, but like I said, it won't, to the Conservation Authority, EJ, it won't matter if
right.
it's if you are inside the floodplain, you can throw eco at them until you're blue in the face, and they won't care. They will say no. They will just say no. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to identify a building envelope of not less than 1 acre on a site that's not less than 2 acres. Yeah. Where you can build something. And it has to be at least 1 acre of a building envelope on a site that's at least 2 acres, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Now, do you want to get some free land?
Sure, yeah.
Sure, free.
I mean it. You want to get something for free?
Absolutely. That's, right.
Yes. So what you might want to do what Brad has done, Brad Cartier has done. Let me show you an example.
Bruce, we're actually going to meet him on Friday.
Yeah. Well, you can tell him he's a wonderful young man. He's a young man in his 30s. He has a beautiful wife and 4 kids. He's a good father, good husband, I think, and a really, really, really smart guy. Like, I've been coaching him for quite a while, and that's a guy you want to really get to know because he's an amazing guy. He's a tech guy too. Not just a real estate guy. So yeah, let me share my screen with you. So this is clients of mine in Quebec. And let's see if I can get this a little bit bigger. So these guys, Nico and his wife, Melanie, are from France, and they came to Canada. And they were like you, EJ. They wanted to do this eco resort thing, and they had resources for sure. But what we did, or what they did, and I coached them, is they made a deal with a golf course in St. Anisette. It was owned by a family that had owned the golf course for forever. I'll see if I can find any of the pictures of the golf course. Sorry, guys. Yeah, here we are. So this is the St. Anisette golf course. And you guys probably are aware that golf, when Tiger Woods was younger, was a really big sport in North America. 30 million people practiced or played golf, you know, weekly. I hate golf, by the way. That's because I was a good hockey player, but boy, did I ever suck at golf, so I hate it. But so there are 30 million players in North America 20 years ago. And it's down below 20 million today. So when you have a business that's doing this, that's not a good sign. So there are, I mean, and that's exactly the discussion I had with Brad Cartier, I guess about a year ago. Find a golf course that's not doing very well, that has extra land, and EJ, the lands that they have probably won't be zoned agricultural, probably won't be zoned rural, probably won't be zoned recreational or environmental protection. They'll probably be zoned CT, commercial tourism. Okay, and which is what happened here with St. Anisette. So St. Anisette had 36 holes and was losing buckets of money. And so Nico and Melanie came here and they said, look, can we take 9 holes, and there's a forest here, a beautiful, beautiful forest, all zone commercial terms, and can we do exactly what Brad did a few years later with Hammond Hill? Okay, so then you can do and you asked Brad about this, I'm sure he'll share this with you. You can do a long-term land lease. And you don't have to pay a nickel for the land. You don't pay anything for the land, not 1 cent. And if you get, in Ontario, you're allowed to do a land lease of 21 years less a day. Yep. And if you do a land lease of 21 years less a day for, you know, say, I don't know, 30 acres or something like that, and it's got commercial tourism zoning on it, then you're not limited to 1 or 2, you know, bunkies. I mean, I think Brad has 50 acres of commercial tourism, and I think his plan is to have like 50 or 100 of these things.
Yeah.
That's free land.
Hmm. And does he, well, I'm gonna ask him all these questions really, but yeah, and then basically you just hire the people who's going to be there, kind of like take care of the cabins, checking people in, etc.
Well, that's a whole other discussion. We're not going to have that discussion, how to operate the thing. You go visit Brad, he'll know that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and I've got other clients doing this too, Whispering Springs and some other guys who are just, you know, they're running these glamping resorts and, you know, making, you know, real money. I mean, you know, John Lochner and Cabinscape, you remember that?
Yeah.
Cabinscape. I mean, John, his business, he's going to have 1,000 of these within a few years. He'll be worth tens of millions of dollars. John is really on. You know, I put him together with another client of mine at Calabogie Peaks, and John is his model is he rents the land from Calabogie Peaks, and I think he's going to put 10 of his cabins there, on his way probably 100. And again, they have the right zoning. So it isn't just golf courses, but anybody who has a ski hill. You know, the problem with ski hills is that you can't ski in the summer.
Yep.
And somebody like you could come along and, you know, he calls his Cabinscape, Brad Karche calls his business Hammond Hill. The guys in Eastern Toronto call it Whispering Springs. You know, and these guys are really, really good at what they do. And, you know, for Brad and for John, their cost of acquiring land is 0. And they share the revenues, right?
Yes.
And so they give the owner anywhere from 4% to 12% of their revenues, depending on how good a negotiator you are, EJ. All right? So if you had, you know, 20 cabins, each of them renting for $200, you know, a night, and you had 20 nights, you know, that's $80,000 a month in income, and you'd give your landlord, so to speak, anywhere from 4% to 12%. All right, and you keep the rest, and you have no cost whatsoever. So there are a lot of golf courses, a lot of ski hills across Canada and the United States that need help. So if this is a model you like, you have a vector for fast growth. You understand that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing that I should tell you is you can put mortgages on leased land. You can have a mortgage on leased land. All right.
Yeah.
So that has to be something you negotiate up front. Otherwise, you have to find another source of financing other than mortgages. Yeah.
Yep.
And your mortgage term, if you have, say, a 21-year less a day lease, your mortgage term would be, say, 15 years. All right, so that, you know, your mortgage company gets paid up before your land lease expires. But hopefully you can renew it. John doesn't care. He does his financing under PPSA agreements, Personal Property Security Act registrations. So his little cabins are treated like RVs. You know, you can get RV financing, right? Because,
Right.
you know, if John wants to, he can just go there, pick them up and move them somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. So there's lots
Yes.
of stuff that you guys need to work on. So you have to think through, though. I've got this recorded. I will put it on YouTube unlisted. I'll send it to Florence and Brendan and you, EJ. You guys have got to pick through this and find a model that, like I said when we started, that you really are passionate about, where you have some skills and you think you can manage it.
Mm-hmm. We all definitely want the cabin in the woods, so it's just really fine-tuning the details, essentially.
Well, it's something that you've been passionate about, and that counts for a lot, EJ.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you know, go and see what Brad is doing, and then if you have time, I should put you in touch with the guys who run Whispering Springs. It will blow your mind what these guys are doing. Whispering Springs is amazing, and maybe John Lochner too. But John's a little bit less willing to share information. You know, he's just a very private guy, and you know, he might not be too forthcoming. So the guys at Whispering Springs would give you a tour. That is closer to Toronto than to Ottawa, so that would be a bit of a hike. But I think you'd really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. Right. We're mostly in Toronto anyway. So Bruce, before we let you go, I just want to clarify. I know that I signed up for 3 months. Is it kind of, does it have to be consecutive, I guess, or?
No, I've got lots of people who, you know, I've been doing this coaching thing, Florence and Brendan, for 8 years. And I've got lots of people who, you know, come to me for some coaching, and whether it's I've got a couple of billionaires I coach, and I've been coaching them for a long time. So it just depends, EJ, whatever. It doesn't have to be 3 consecutive months. It doesn't have to be 3 months either. If you wanted some more coaching, it could be longer or shorter. You just have to let me know.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so I'll let you know about the next session. And I guess I'm just curious too, because I know that I signed, like, again, with the contract that I signed initially, it's for 3 months. But with the Burning Rock solution, I think there's an extra month there included. I can't remember.
Well, Burning Rock Solutions gives you 2 one-hour sessions with me over a year at your discretion.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you use your coach as you need him, okay? Like, I'm here to, you know, basically teach and try and help people do things that maybe they could do on their own, but might take them another decade or 2 to figure out.
Yeah.
All right? Yeah. So I'm the shortcut, all right?
Sounds
so
good.
Let me know, EJ, okay? Just let me know. And it was good to meet you, Florence. I'll see y'all later.
You too.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Good to meet you guys.
Bye, Brendan.